And what you can do is create that confidence. What you can do is kind of create that grouping together.
Welcome to a new episode of the SMAC Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Florian, and I have Marloes Knippenberg, CEO of Kerten Hospitality, with me today. We speak about the cornerstones of the rapid growth of Kerten, the importance of genuine and community-driven hospitality concepts, and Marloes' personal career. Enjoy! Hello, Marloes. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
I'm very happy to have you on the show, as you are somewhat of an industry celebrity nowadays, and I've been following your great achievements since we've actually met first time in Lausanne 2016 when you came to EHL presenting a student business project which students did for Kerten Hospitality. In the last 6 years, you led the Kerten growth. And could you quickly introduce us and our listeners to what Kerten is about and what makes your brand stand out?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And it just sounds like we met last year, and it's a few years ago. It's insane where I guess we've gotten to till now. So Kerten Hospitality is a mixed-use operating company, operating hotels, branded residences, service apartments, serviced offices, co-working. We operate our own F&B. We partner with other kind of concepts. We complement our projects with wellness, with retail, healthcare, and anything else in between. We have a pipeline in 7 different countries at the moment. 5 openings this year alone. We opened Cloud 7 residences in Aqaba last year during the pandemic, 3 days before the actual set opening date. We are RGI leader in that market since the opening, and we have an incredible pipeline coming up for mixed of projects where we're combining hotels and residences, where we're adding community spaces, and many other things. We own 11 brands. We develop them all in-house with all of the aspects with it. We operate with an incredibly lean team. We have teams between Ireland, Spain, Vienna, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and then a few of us just fly around. We always have been operating with remote teams. So our teams just go from project to project and live it and build it together. And I think what makes us really a bit or significantly different than a lot of the other operators is that we like to collaborate, and we've always liked to collaborate. We go by brand guidelines and not by brand standards. We look at every project as if it's the first and kind of take a very individualized approach. And we've understood that owners nowadays are smarter, more engaged, more connected. And we cherish that. We work with them and we kind of take them on that journey between where a project should go, but also their local experience, which you can never have that same experience as somebody who's been, on an asset for a very long time.
That sounds super interesting, but for me the big question is, how can you scale such a concept so rapidly? You mentioned a lot of individuality and each concept having more guidelines. And not necessarily standards. But since we met in 2016, I remember there was the House Hotel and Cloud 7. Nowadays, you have 3,500 keys or more. What are the challenges to be able to scale a concept where you give so much freedom to the individual brands and employees?
Well, I guess with anything, when it's guidelines, there is much less control. When it's more individualized, you have to really put in much more effort into every single project. So I'd say every single day and every single month. And we continue to reinvent ourselves. We continue to be very self-critical. We build up standards or infrastructures where they're required. And so we try to kind of work together with owners, with the team on the ground, to find a good balance between both. Because when you look at a lot of the bigger operators, they have become so standardized, which helps to scale very quickly, and it gives a certain level of trust. But when there's changes in the industry, and the industry is changing so rapidly, it's very difficult to have teams that think by themselves, teams that are really deeply rooted in what is being done, and making those adjustments.
Can you tell us a bit more, maybe in the story of the growth of Kerten? So you started more with hotels and serviced apartments, and then you also added a lot of F&B to it. How did you go step by step? Was there already like a long-term 5 to 10 year strategy, and already the concepts, or is it more kind of market demand and adapting rapidly to it?
No, there was. I mean, we in the beginning we still created a kind of 5 year plan, but then every single time we did a 5 year plan, we finished the 5 year plan in a year. So we said from the beginning we wouldn't operate food and beverage, because a lot of standalone operators would do that much better. But as we were going, it was very difficult to find good brands that wanted to branch out, or people that wanted to take spaces, or people that understood and were willing to collaborate and partner. And we couldn't necessarily find everything that we were looking for. So therefore, we then adapted. We adapted our strategy and started developing some of our own food and beverage, plugging them into our projects or applying them to the kind of locations where we were starting. And yes, everything started as a hotel brand and a kind of hotel journey. But as we could see, for example, even the co-working and the serviced office, meeting spaces and classic meeting rooms are so often underutilized. And it's not enough to put some desks in a meeting space and say, now this is co-working and people will just come in, and start co-working here. You kind of really have to adapt the mindset and you kind of way of looking at the world. And I think in our industry, this is still one of the most difficult pieces, because you bring on somebody who's good in F&B, this is what they've done for life. You bring somebody who's good in meetings or events or co-working, that's, it's kind of still very singular specialism that goes through, and it's front desk is front desk. People find it very difficult to overcome the kind of multitasking. But, it's something that grows. And I would say our brands have never been strict to it's only for a hotel or only for branded residents. We always said it kind of comes with a certain lifestyle and a certain positioning. And it doesn't matter if that's in a resort or in an urban location. And it doesn't matter if that is something easy, small unit, or something very sophisticated. It really depends on the project and the location.
So you guys are operating mixed use concepts. So does that mean that in the different locations you have pretty much a combination of all the brands, or do you really pick and choose the right brands for the specific location?
We pick and choose on every single location. So we don't have any box standard recipe. We don't come with 20% of this and 10% of this and 50% of this. It really depends on the location, the project, the size, how is the competitive landscape around it. And I think this is one of the things that hasn't been done in the industry for quite a while anymore. When you talk about sustainability is also being responsible with what you build in a market. And, just plugging in another 10, 15, 100 hotels in markets that are already running on 60% occupancy at the max is irresponsible to a certain extent. I think we took always quite a responsible approach. And therefore nothing is standard and everything is really kind of looked at. And when we don't think that a project is for us, we honestly say that.
Yeah, that's important. Um, who's your target market for such a mixed use concept? Would you have then different targets for the different brands you have in the same location? Do you go more for international travel, or do you also think much more about the local community?
Local community has always been a part of what we said and do. When you look at target audiences, even when we did the concept for Cloud 7, um, people always explain to us that a target audience is not necessarily a horizontal, but actually it's a vertical. And when you take a target audience as a vertical, it means it's a group of people that have similar interests or a similar purpose. When you take it as a horizontal, it's kind of an age group, for example. And even when we developed Cloud 7 and now when you think that it's for a younger audience between 20 and 25, you see that on many of the heavy travel days, the average age is 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus. But it's people who want adventure, people who want to meet other people who want to connect. Um, and I think that's the same with the nomadism or this whole idea of pick up your house and go and work somewhere else. And the interesting thing is that has really accelerated last year. But when we talked about this before, that people and definitely the kind of Gen Z newer generations would pick up their life, work from somewhere for 6 months and come back. That was always crazy. And now people are doing it at any age groups, at any income class, because so much has moved remote. And I think that's the same way you kind of look at the project and you look at hospitality and you think, if you look at it the old fashioned way of how to build a brand and how to build up hotels and what to attract in a corporate traveler, and do they need their frequent flyer card, etc. People are totally blurring leisure and business, this famous bleisure word. And they're doing these workations. So you need to create environments that are interesting from a work perspective so that there is privacy, there is silence, there is nicer environments. And then you still have this kind of leisure element that when you go to a restaurant, that you don't come in one of these depressing places that you really do not want to be in. And I think we're still learning, and I think people are still kind of adapting what they want, but people care where the food is coming from. People care that there is no carb kind of products around when they want to eat something. At the same time, they want their burger when they want their burger. So it's very interesting journey on how to roll something out that is relevant, that is adaptable, that you can scale with, but that continues to be interesting. And I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that with pleasure. Also, in one of our latest podcasts, we discussed that also for us as a generation, through also before the pandemic. If you're in a tech company, you could always work remote, and why not have a nice location to work from, especially in the Berlin winter when it's cold and rainy outside. But so is your segment, so your target markets are really benefiting from the synergies and the diversification of your brands, so that they can actually just go to fricadelle, have something a bit more rustic, and then go to another concept which is maybe a bit more high end, and they can have everything out of your portfolios, so to say.
I think it's a mix, correct? It's some, like you take one of our brands, for example, Juntos, which is a Mediterranean sharing concept that can have an element of entertainment or not. You put something like that into a location where you have enough footfall. When you take a burger concept like fricadelles, you could put that into a lobby. You could put that into a side entrance where you have the kind of Uber Eats, etc., picking up from that location. But then when you look at some of the other locations in Jeddah, for example, or all day dining, if you still want to call it like that, is branded. It's a franchise of Baker and Spice managed by us. And so you have a branded experience from a brand that is well established, exists, is successful, and you bring that together, and people have two reasons to come. One, because they know they're going to have this kind of weekend brunch experience for breakfast every day, and secondly, because they want to see the hotel. And bringing in entrepreneurial new concepts, for example, under Food Souk, it's become a platform where we give people the opportunity to change their concept every 6 months. And we do that with contests, and we set out what we want it to be, how we want it to be, etc. And again, there it's it's the relevance of it. And I think there is, when you look at a classic hotel, there is a specific target audience for certain brands, if that's a corporate or a leisure. And when you develop mixed use concepts, you make them focused on corporate or leisure or combination of, and you look, how much can somebody pay as an average rate? How much can you pay and afford to invest in getting the rooms ready? And you make a combination of that. And for example, if you look at our Cloud 7 in Aqaba, we're only bringing to life the food and beverage concepts in 2 years. And for now, we're leveraging on the incredible marina of 30 concepts that are there, because there's absolutely no reason for us to put one more concept in when the footfall in the other places are not saturated yet.
That's important. I think it's not just coming, as you mentioned also before, the big success is actually looking at the projects individually and at the community around it, and not just kind of what a lot of other brands would do. It's kind of, we have a concept and it needs to be the same everywhere because we have our own brand standard, and therefore we don't really take into account the locals and the local community.
But the thing is, that's so easy to do, correct? You can sit in your office in, let's say, London or something like that, come up with something, put it on a beautiful PowerPoint, get a graphic designer to look at it, send it out, put it in and plug it in. And then you don't actually have people come in, and you would just ask the question, if it was your own place, would you spend this money and would you bring this to life? Or is it just something that, sounds good, looks good? And I think it's also the involvement of the team and the involvement of the owner. The more people buying into it, the more people are feeling it, the more people are living it, the more all of these pieces come together, the more, people will bring it to life. The more you kind of set out, dominate, standardize, send out without a real kind of connection to it, the less people will want to come to it.
Totally agree. How do you do that? Do you have then really foots on the ground who scout the market before and tell you how how the local community is, and how, when you come to a new location, how do you kind of attract the local community to embrace your new concept? Because I see that often as a big challenge for hotels, when that they're kind of they're standing out.
Massive challenge. I'd say I learned a lot from our brand director, Anthony Doucet. He is one of those gifted people that simply connects to people wherever he goes. He does the research on a location via Instagram influencers, but in the most genuine possible way. And there's no recipe for this. And every single time we travel together, and we've been traveling a lot together for the last 5 years, yes, it includes no sleep, but it's always pushing yourself. If I would have to build those kind of communities, and people think I'm social, but I am not your stereotypical person of social. I would stay on property probably until 11 o'clock at night, not go outside and forget that there is a world outside, because you just get absorbed by the day. And I think that's a sickness we have in the industry. One of the things that Anthony has always done fantastic is, when he books a dinner with somebody, he's loyal to that person. when he invites somebody, everybody has to make sure they know that this person is coming, and he looks after them like their best friends or family already since whenever. And I think this is one of the difficulties of communities, is that a community idea is born in marketing, or is born from somebody who is supposed to build communities together. It's not a genuine thing. And it's, how do you teach people, or how do you integrate connecting to other people? How do you integrate making time to have coffees with people? And how do you then appreciate that? Because the day doesn't have more hours, correct? And people still have to finish their jobs and everything else. So it's almost like you can only build a community when when the hotel and the location almost becomes your life. And that's something that you can't always expect from people that are coming and doing this as a job. And I think this over time might change a bit. And I think this year has changed a lot already with regards to, it's okay for somebody to work from a cafe or sit somewhere else. But even there, many people can't handle that kind of freedom. So how do you facilitate that kind of freedom with the inspiration, but still expect that they're talking to others, that they bring that back as business? And I have many examples where, we have people passing by the door of a closed hotel, and you could pick up possibly more business from the street as you could for any, online channel or telephone. But it has to be in your nature. You have to kind of go in and say, like, oh, what are you guys doing? You have to have that curiosity. You have to want to have that continuous drive. And I think that's something that is led by passion. It's led by something you really believe in. And it's very difficult to teach these kind of emotional aspects. And just saying we're building a community for the sake of building a community, and we want to have some artists in the hotel, and then nobody in the hotel actually has a clue about art to start off with, just simply doesn't work. People want genuine, and that genuine creation comes with a lot of challenges that we haven't overcome as an industry yet.
Yeah, I find it fascinating to hear that, and I think, as you say, genuine is super important, because you have so much of these. Once the design hotel name came, every hotel became a design hotel, and you could see that most of them had not really an eye for design, but just knew that it was selling well, and it was not very unique anymore, because everybody was just copycatting in a sense. So I think that level of genuinity, guests can really feel it. The customer will definitely join that. Looking at the pandemic, which of course had a huge impact on the general industry, and let's not talk too much about the numbers and the bad things out of it, because I think that's discussed already quite enough in the industry.
Yeah,
But
I'm not the right person to go and do that anyway. So yes,
let's have more look at how did the customer journey change, or what are your expectations? You said already there's going to be a massive rise of pleasure, so mixing business and leisure. But what are, from your perspective, the biggest learnings or trends which you are seeing in terms of customer journey?
I think for brands like us, there's been one, or I guess multiple positives and opportunities that have come from it. But I think one of the key pieces is that everybody had difficulties, and yes, some couldn't make it, but there's still quite a number of us standing. And I think this was always the expectation that, oh, when the times would be bad, you would be better off to have signed with one of the big operators, because at least they would be there for you, they would come, etc. We did let go our teams in head office. It was difficult to travel, but some of us actually moved on project and spent part of the pandemic on project, just to ensure that we would be on the ground touching it. Yes, we had delays in openings, but the number of requests of new leads was much more significant. With regards to the customer journey, and I think over time there is people just want more transparency, and saying just more transparency is so easy. When the pandemic started, everybody was about safety and hygiene, and you know every video that you can find on YouTube after. And then everybody's written, I don't know how many standards on it and really looked at the materials that they're using, etc. But when you go to hotels and you see, they put this sticker on the door that it was cleaned by XYZ, and it's sealed. When you look at how they're using it one year, and I've traveled still, even last year, a significant amount, when you open the door with the seal, and the seal is just kind of half peeled off and you can open and close it, it doesn't give that confidence of the customer journey. And I think it's one of the things we've learned, and we've been much more exposed to, is genuine sustainability. And not just having CSR plans, but talking about ESG. How can you go more local? How can you create transparency in supply chain? How can you find your local supply chain? How can you then manage that? And I understand for many people the kind of kickback commissions, and the buying in bulk for a lot of the properties bring incredible price benefits. But then the carbon footprint waste that you're producing with it is crazy. So awareness for different aspects in the industry and what is important to people, and also for people what to look for in travel, I think has really changed. And I think this is actually going to bring very different expectations from people that I'm not sure yet what those will be, to be very honest. And I think people are just, wanting to connect more in a more genuine way. And when they go and travel, have the kind of conveniences that they don't have to go from place to place, city to city, etc. So we'll see from there. But I think we all needed a moment of standstill. I'm not sure we all needed it this long. But we've all learned from it, correct? And we've all, anybody who's been working their lalas off, has really kind of made the next steps. And if I talk for myself, I've learned so much last year, and it's something I will cherish forever, as difficult as it was.
Could you maybe share one or two things you've learned personally throughout this time?
One of the things that still is very close to my heart is the engagement of the team and the dedication of the people that we have. And sometimes you take that for granted, or you think it's normal. And then when you actually stand still, you think this is really not normal. Everybody is sitting somewhere, not seeing anybody, connecting together and driving through and opening a project remote, with some people never having seen each other, is a challenge in itself. Women in Hospitality, which is the other initiative that I had the absolute honor of being part of. I didn't know, to be very honest, and it sounds super ignorant, that there was such a challenge with bringing women and keeping women in the industry. If you look at that, I would say, yes, I've worked hard, but I've possibly also been a bit lucky, or I've, kind of maximized the opportunities. But just being able to give back to different initiatives. The other piece is the Sustainability and Innovation Challenge I'm part of. And giving back to the industry, sharing knowledge with the newer generations, has been something that I wouldn't have had time for if I would have continued to do this insane travel. And possibly I would not have even realized the kind of issues that were going on. Same with Black Lives Matter, BAME, all of these elements, they were part of us. Racism has been part of us for so many years. But have we really taken that so serious? I don't think so. Until we all started to take it serious and we all started to talk about carbon footprint. Even when I went to school, that was kind of part of the curriculum. And, it was kind of the hippie subject. Being vegan or vegetarian, was just something you giggled about. And now it's something that is so serious. And when you go and buy meat or fish, or you walk into a supermarket and you touch something that has plastic, you actually are so aware that, you start making very different choices. And I think that really is something that last year brought.
Yeah, definitely. I see that very similar. Before it was always just faster, better, and it was only about kind of that performance aspect. And through the pandemic, you had time to actually understand, as you said, your team who's working hard every day, or have time to see inequalities and do something about it. Because yeah, in your normal day to day, I would expect that you don't really have a lot of time to do so. Could you maybe, I anyways wanted to talk to you about women in hospitality. I find it a very interesting or super good initiative. But could you maybe, for the listeners who don't know about it, quickly explain what's the goal behind it, and who you're targeting?
Um, Lisa Engel actually founded this and started this during the pandemic. And it really started to, like the hashtag says, stronger together, to be stronger together, and come together and support. And she started creating these knowledge share moments, and then on the back of that created a mentorship program. And the interest was really snowballing very quickly. And one of the things that you could really see is groups of people getting to know each other who never met and started to form their own groups because of the same interest, because, of the vibes, of the energy, and all these kind of smaller groups started spinning off. And so after that, it went to the next level, kind of going global and bringing um, industry leaders together, but also passionate hospitality people in build, operate, fund, and advise. So you kind of bring together everybody who plays a significant role in the development journey, let's say, of hospitality. And really, what the core of it is that it's knowledge share. It's creating opportunities for women to speak publicly and feel more confident to publicly speak. For women to be exposed within the industry, and when you look at WH Global, the profiles that have been running on LinkedIn and also on Instagram for the last couple of weeks, they're really personal when you read them, and they're women from from the US up to Asia, Middle East, and anything in between. And everybody has a different journey. And just creating that exposure, getting a voice out there creates this kind of confidence. And with confidence comes that women, probably need a mentor. And so comes the mentorship program back. But that also then creates more opportunities. Because one of the interesting things is, and 10% of the group is male and male supporters. One of the things when you talk to men is they're saying, listen, we love working with women. We have tons of opportunities for them. We are posting and we're searching a lot of the times to actually hire women, but they're just not coming. And when you speak to people, like for example Jennifer from the bench, who I absolutely admire, and she always says, "I'm trying so hard to bring women on speaker panels." And she says, when you ask 6 women, 5 definitely say no, and 1 will think about it. When you ask 6 men, there's not 1 that will say no. When you have a job description and there's 1 or 2 items that women think they do not fulfill, they will just simply not apply. When men see that there's 2 points that they kind of fit that profile, they will apply. And that's something that you can't just change. And what you can do is create that confidence. When what you can do is kind of create that grouping together and create more synergies and create more support, which is also something that women are much more critical than man with man. And it's something that's simply really deep rooted in the way that we've always been positioned and worked, etc. And I think what's great about this initiative is that it looks at the greater challenge, takes that on, doesn't just talk about some women's subjects, but actually works on enhancing the skill sets and exposing great people together.
Yeah, no, definitely. We can see it in our day-to-day lives. Also, I organize weekly clubhouse sessions with executives from the especially from the German hotel market or DACH market. And when you ask female leaders, it's typically more hesitant or more questions. And from the mail, they even write you a message that they would like to be on one of these panels, even though they've never listened in and they don't even know what you're talking about, but they just want to get some extra exposure. But I found it admiring, or I saw your post on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, maybe even today. That you guys at Kerten, you have over 90% of your exec team are women. You have 70%, 75% of your general managers who are women. How do you guys, make it? How do you manage to overcome that hurdle and make it
By
a
accident.
place by accident? That
I mean, it was just opportunity. Correct. It's. I
it's
think, and it's
genuine
also,
then. If it's by
yes, this
accident,
is
it's
also,
genuinity. Yeah.
yeah, but I think this is also, that Dutch humor will never go out. But I think it's one of the things that when we all came together and through this journey, even the conversation around women wasn't so significant and so strong. Um, but like I said in my post, and I think it is because of initiatives like WIH Global, but also through other initiatives and connecting education with the working force. Um, and there being more opportunities for women, so there's less competitiveness and more support together. I think it's I don't want to say it's easier, but there is more women that kind of pop up now and want to be part of it. Where, I think there's still some companies that are making a very much an effort to bring women on, but unless you know why you want to do it, or it has a meaning to you, or you find somebody really talented, just having a woman for the sake of having a woman, it really defeats the purpose. And I think from when you look with us, from our CFO, who, I mean, I can't say any different than is kick ass, to head legal, to driving operations, to I mean, we haven't picked them because they're women. We haven't, we didn't start working together. We don't like each other because we're women. We respect each other because of knowledge. And yes, everybody challenges everybody, correct? And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. And when you grow, it comes with growing pains. But I think it's something that if you look for something really hard, you can never find it. When you take an opportunity that comes on your path and you make something really good out of it, all of a sudden it becomes something. And I would say that really describes our female journey. And now I'm really happy that we're, adding something to the industry that's making this difference.
Yeah, no, that's. I think, of course, as you say, it comes by coincidence. But of course, as we also discussed before, typically you need to have the right environment for somebody to even dare apply, for women to feel safe or feel that they apply. So something in I think in the whole atmosphere is definitely working better on at Kerten than, let's say, a lot of other typical executive brands. But maybe it's also just because the man hierarchies are already too much built in, that there's too much, I don't know, I don't want to call it discrimination, but yeah, somewhat already just in the mindset. Um, but it's nice to see some good examples, and that the industry can learn from it. And for me, it's actually a super bridge where I would like to talk a bit more about your own career, and looking at your quite very successful career, but also quite fast you came to the position of CEO of Kerten. What was it, 6 years ago, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken?
Yes.
Could you maybe just quickly, tell us a bit, how you got there from graduating from The Hague Hotel School? Was the path kind of set, or were there also some coincidence along the way? Um,
I think there was always, but one of the things that maybe the opportunities I had was when we moved when I was younger. I was exposed to the hospitality industry very early onwards. I absolutely loved it, and I couldn't see myself go to a university studying for 4 or 5 years just sitting there with more books. I'd kind of done enough of that, and even at that time, I didn't have a problem studying, learning, or anything. Anything that was relevant or anything I needed, zero problem. But anything that was kind of um, ambiguous, or kind of you have to need it whenever, however, it wasn't really for me. And so in my final year of the Hotel School The Hague, I got selected for the Hilton Elevator program, the fast track program where only 10 people started every single year. It was a program that was 18 months, and it was incredible because all of the icons of the industry at the time were CEOs, VPs, MDs, and they were part of it. So they were all our mentors, supporters. They questioned us, challenged us. And from there, through my Hilton journey, because I was the youngest in most of my positions, and I changed every 1.5, 2 years destination, I'm really thankful for that journey. And because it's such a structured corporate company, you learn so much in such a short time. Just, at the end, you have to decide at one stage, are you going to do this for life? And this is kind of what you believe is what your future looks like. Or do you believe that there's something else out there? And I believe that there's something else out there. I believe that the world was changing faster than we could keep up. And I kind of wanted to see something different. And so I had this amazing experience with Enrica Rocca, a cooking contessa, who entrepreneur from top to bottom, taught me so much, not just about business, but about life and about connecting with your concept, and connecting with really what you do and why you do it, and staying true to what you believe in every single minute of every single day. I still remember, very funny stuff like when we needed business cards, and she totally agreed with me, looked at me, and that meant pretty much Google, finding a printer. And it's something that when you're in a big corporate, you call for business cards. You don't know how much they cost. You don't know where they come from. You don't know who actually orders them. You don't even know where the printer is. You don't know where the design is stored. It just comes, it arrives, and life continues. And it taught me so much that when my path crossed with the owner of this company, and we decided just to have a very short term kind of consultancy agreement and engagement, we just clicked, and there was something that it could see that the future could bring. And I think it's something that I always say to students, but also people close to me, is if you believe in something and you really go for it, you're the only one who's going to stop you. And that means very little sleep, a lot of being away from home. It means triple, quadruple tasking. And it means going 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And you kind of continue to go through that roller coaster of plus, minus, plus, minus. I think I was very gifted by nature that I seem to have an exceptional limit of energy or unlimited energy. I can't help that either. It's just, it was a gift, I guess. My glass is always half full and never half empty. I trust by nature, which, all of these things are questionable, correct? Because you can make a lot of mistakes with that. And I've met incredible people along the way who have been really loyal to, and who have been really loyal to me, and who had similar mindsets. And, in the beginning, it was just talk, and it was banter, and it was kind of pushing the boundaries. And it was kind of, there's another kind of like loud voice coming onto the market. And, everybody looks at you and goes like, oh yeah, next year we'll not be there anymore. And I think as we were staying and as we were growing and as people were buying into us more, now we're no longer just this disrupting kind of brand that's out there with a female CEO who's kind of younger than the others. And everybody looks at it a bit like, I'm not going to be the first one. I think it's now people are coming for that much more because we're there to stay. And we've proven that last year. And it comes with, it comes with ups and downs. And I think the one thing that is maybe not always right is it looks like the company is just me, which it really isn't. And the way that the team pulls together and the way that that team kind of, grows with it, and everything that they bring to daily life, we couldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. And that's the same for the owner. I mean, the man has, oh my goodness, he works 24/7. He pushes us to the max, and he continues to question. And when you bring all of these kind of characters together, and there's nobody within that who says stop or pulls the brake once in a while, then that means that you just continue going. And I think that has been one of the greatest opportunity that I was given. And yes, it was, I guess, I can't even say scary at times, but it's kind of overwhelming at times. You go like, seriously? But on the other hand, when you take a responsibility for assets of owners, you take a responsibility for the team, you take a responsibility for, everything else around it. There is no going back, correct? You can't question yourself and say, well, maybe today I don't feel like it anymore. You make a commitment, and you go with that. And there have been incredible mentors and supporters on the way who, without them, I could have never gotten to this point. And you kind of need people around you who believe in you. And you have to try to be as genuine as you can be about it, and as real as you can be about it. And again, that comes with nobody's perfect, correct? And I guess that's how I got to today.
Yeah, I find it fascinating to listen to you and to your path in your career. And I would also, from my own experience, really just sign off on that. It's there's a lot of people around you who are willing to help and push in this industry, and I find that is amazing. But you need to be also willing to fail and willing to make mistakes, but you need to go for it in a sense. And if you go for it, then suddenly a lot of doors open and a lot of things can happen, and can happen quite quickly, I would say.
True.
I maybe also, so coming back to the moment where we actually met. You were having a student business project at École Hôtelière de Lausanne, where I was a student at that time. Also, I was not part of that project working for you, but more maybe finding out like, why are you do you do these kind of projects? Why do you work with students on new concepts or on new things? Do you think they have special inspiration, they bring new mindsets to it, or is it actually to kind of growth hack your employment maybe?
I
Where
think
do you see the
there's
advantage?
a lot of I would say there's a lot of different angles to that. One, I find it extremely motivating. So for one very selfish reason, that it just simply motivates me and gives me a lot of positive energy, just simply listening to ideas and the energy and the questions, etc. Not even having to take any of it. The second piece, I think we have a responsibility to give back and connect. And I think often when we're too busy, it's even when you look at it now, it's so difficult for students to find internships at the moment. It's so difficult for students to connect to the working environment. Um, and I think we have a responsibility there as an industry to see how we can connect that, how we can bridge that. And I've always felt that. And then there's a piece where, the kind of how do you work on projects together with people whose world it is in a few years, and I think that comes back to the point of relevance. I think when you study something in theory, it doesn't always work that way in practical life, but unless you push yourself, nothing will ever change. And I think when, even for example, came back to HL maybe 2 years ago or something, and we had this panel about sustainability, and I was so surprised because we were sitting there with a number of people and some sophisticated brands, and it's a lot of greenwashing and pretty videos, etc. But the students were very real, and we never screamed about sustainability because I don't think we can fulfill what's the expectation of your generation yet. And I'm not sure anybody can at the moment. We can all try, but I'm not sure anybody of us can really own it. But the questions I got from, do you know where the cow was living before it became a steak on your plate? Oh, okay. Next question. Do you know where the food is coming from that cow was eating? What? And it's just transparency of supply chain was during that panel discussion by questions from the students. It's like, wow. When Paul Griep from the Hotel School The Hague asked me to be part of the jury and actually let me into the Sustainability and Innovation Challenge for that really brings together the 30 best universities, and my role and my support was in how can we connect this with the big wide world, because all of these fantastic ideas are going into the bin unless you connect it with people that have the money, or the influencers, or the decision makers, and anything else. And I think this is one of the things that it's not just for me or for us. I think as an industry, unless we do a better job in connecting with innovative ideas and new ideas with the newer generation, I'm not sure how exactly we're going to get there. Like a research and development center, does that necessarily have to be done by, more mature people? Let me say it like that. Or could you just, for different aspects, look at different groups of students? And yeah, I also think that it enhances the curriculum, because I don't think the curriculums being taught are always as relevant and as touching the kind of real world as it is out there. And yes, it's about being creative and excited and coming up with new stuff. But at the end of the day, it's also about relevance. And I think the more you combine education with the industry, the working industry, the more relevant it becomes on both sides.
Yeah. No, and you have this great opportunity also, and I remember that when at that time we were we had the first concept of Hotel Hero. It was called Hospitex at that time, and you're, I think, one of the first industry people we got the opportunity to just pitch it quickly, because you're grabbing a coffee at EHL and just kind of like, hey, do you have 2 seconds, so we can get your feedback. And I think this just industry student connection, as you say, is invaluable, and so it's super important that the industry embraces future hospitality students and participates there, adds projects, goes to panels, etc., so that there's not a disconnect at the end of the day, and both sides can really benefit from it. I would like to have one follow-up question on
Mhm.
the aspect of sustainability, traceability of the supply chain. In a conversation I had last week or 2 weeks ago, we discussed that, and one of the hoteliers said, "Hey, yeah, it's amazing. We want to do a lot of sustainability, and it's all great, but at the end of the day, we need as a hotelier to offer a product for 80% of our customers, and not just for 20% of it. Most of our customers are not ready to pay the extra price for more sustainable products. How do you see that, and how do you maybe see this trend evolve with the next generation coming up?
Well, I think, the kind of sustainable products, it's still this kind of conversation on a product versus a supermarket product. And I think I, if you asked me this question a few years ago, I would have agreed. I think now the percentages are changing so rapidly. I don't think it's anymore just a matter of changing pricing. It's how you offer it, where you take it from, what you're offering, and do you still need to go down the route of, having multiple places? And I think there comes in also the piece of collaboration, correct? Do you need to have a breakfast restaurant next to a place where there's 25 other restaurants, and therefore you have to buy the eggs, at the cheapest supermarket because, you want your 18% food cost, else you're not going to make the money. Um, it's kind of these deeper questions I think that are going to come up when you look at developing hotels, etc. So it's kind of like it's like um, how to say this. It's kind of who starts first, correct? Is the operator going to demand to the owner to put in more sustainable buildings? I think at the good old times, building sustainable was really expensive. Now the return of investment has become much better. I think it's a bit like technology. There's so many products out there, and there's so much conversation and discussion out there. It's very difficult for people to figure out what what's really sustainable or what they can do. And I think it just goes to your question with regards to localization and decentralization is, you can't do the same in every project. You can't necessarily, as a big global company, take one decision that will fit everybody. But you can create a message, and you can create the engagement of the teams to see what can be done locally. Saying you go totally plastic free, but then you look at the delivery of a certain property, and there's still the pallets coming in, covered with plastic, etc. Yeah, you might not have plastic water bottles in the room, but you could have as well have that, because the amount of plastic you're still getting in is so significant. And it comes back to, how does your supply chain look like? Because if you don't want that, you have to change your supply chain altogether. And it's possibly tougher to find your cheese in the beginning, but it could be cheaper at the end. But how do you then secure the kind of quality, and how do you ensure the guy gets out of his bed every single day and actually delivers this to you when you really need it? And these kind of things, but even the materials used, and how do you look at local materials? I think we're all learning as we're going, and I think one of the great things is we're creating so much awareness in the industry. And I think it's one of these where, instead of questioning and challenging each other, and laughing about plastic straws, which I've done too, is how can we kind of work together and find better ways that support locality, support all of this in a doable manner, instead of trying to be something that we cannot reach, and therefore we just simply do nothing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think awareness is a key aspect, and we can see that we've come already a long way. I think it's not, maybe not long enough, not far enough yet, but definitely in the right direction. But Marlos, thank you so much for taking the time. We're already above 1 hour, and I would just like to ask one final question before I let you go, and that is, could you give one tip for, you know, hospitality students or any young professionals in the industry? You know, what one tip to kind of for their career, what one piece of advice you would have for them?
Be good at something, really strive for it. And, you know, one of the things, and I've said this to you, that I also admire about you is you go for it, you don't let go, even when it gets difficult. You hang in there, you believe in it, you live it, you absolutely make sure that you're heard, and you just know that you're going to succeed. It might take a little longer, but you just know that you're going to succeed. And I think this passion with continuous drive and believing in it versus, you know, trying to increase knowledge forever or being good at a bit of everything or never being heard, I think makes a massive difference.
That's amazing closing words. Thank you so much, Marloes. It was a great pleasure to have you on the show.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Special thanks to our season sponsor, I Reckon You, Hospitality's first customer data platform. Their philosophy is to stop buying software and building a framework. Their middleware platform connects a hotel's above property and on-premise systems, creating a frictionless flow of hotel and guest data that enhances the guest journey while increasing operational efficiency. Find out more at ireckonyou.com, and don't forget to check out what there is to know about Smack at smack.media or on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook channel. We'll see you next time.